Hi everyone, I'm Ritz. I'm here to discuss parts of Task A measurements, specifically A1 and A2. Before I start, here is the breakdown for Task List A. Although we will be covering A1 and A2 in this video, there are 4 other sections for this task list that won't be covered today, but perhaps in the near future, I will make a video to cover those sections as well. All right, so let's get started. A1, prepare for data collection. That's basically getting ready for the day. So you want to gather your materials. So let's say you will need a clicker, a timer, data sheet. If you have to log into your app, let's say Rethink, Central Reach, any of those apps, you want to log into that before your session starts. Any reinforcers needed for that day, you basically want to have everything in hand reach. Review your behavior plan. So if there's any changes in your behavior plan that you should be aware of, you should already kind of have a feel of what the behavior plan is in case there is a behavior during your session. Review programs, especially new programs. You want to make sure you know what you are doing. You do not want to read your step-by-step of each program while there's a child in front of you. So you should be reviewing those before your session starts. And you want to understand the type of data that will be collected. So task analysis is one, for example, duration, any of those you want to be aware of and how to run them when you are with a client. A2, so that's implement continuous measurement procedure. So what is continuous measurement? It records every time a behavior happens. So that could be through frequency, rate, duration, latency, inter-response time, which you will also hear in the field as IRT. I will go over every one of these in the upcoming slides. Frequency, how many times a behavior happens. So how do I remember? F for frequency, F for fingers. You count with your fingers. Although in this field, you do not want to count with your fingers. I just think about fingers and counting in my head to remember the word frequency. The example here is Ritz raised her hand 5 times. The frequency is 5. Next is rate, how many times something happens per unit of time. So rate equals frequency divided by time. An example is a student screamed 6 times during a 30-minute session. The rate is 6 divided by 30, which equals 0.2 times per minute. The difference from frequency and rate is that rate has time involved in a scenario. Frequency does not. You don't know how long the behavior is. You just know how many times the behavior occurred. Duration, how long a behavior lasts from start to end. How do I remember? Well, the dur in duration equals time of during behavior. So the time during a behavior. An example is Fritz sleeps for 8 minutes. So the duration is the time during the behavior. What's the behavior? Sleeping. So the time of the behavior is 8 minutes. Latency, the time between a cue, which is the SD, and when the behavior starts. How do I remember? Latency has the word late, and I think of how late it takes someone to do a behavior when the SD is presented. An example is, Mom tells me to clean my room. I start cleaning my room 3 minutes later. The latency is 3 minutes. And there's a picture that describes the example. Here's my mom yelling at me, clean your room. At 1 o'clock, she was yelling at me. And how late did I start that behavior? 3 minutes. I didn't start cleaning that room till 3 minutes after she told me to clean my room. Inter-response time, also known as IRT. It's the time between the end of one behavior and the start of the next. So the example here is Rob clapped for the first time at 2:05. The time between the end of his first clap and the start of his second clap was 2 minutes. And there's a picture that describes the scenario. There's Rob clapping at 2:05. He finishes clapping at 2:05, and 2 minutes later, he starts again to clap. The inter-response time was 2 minutes. Now that we did A1 and A2, here are a couple questions. First one, you're recording how long it takes your client to brush his teeth. What type of data are you taking? A, frequency, B, rate, C, duration, D, latency. Pause and think for your answer, and the answer is on the next slide. The answer here is C, duration. I will go over why the other ones are incorrect. We'll start with A, frequency. Remember, frequency is counting how many times something happened. So it would be reworded as how many times the client would brush his teeth. It won't be B, rate, because rate is, remember, frequency divided by time. So the scenario would be reworded as you are recording how many times your client brushes his teeth during a 2-hour session. You see there's time and there's frequency that you are taking there. And it's not D, latency. It would be reworded as his mom told him to brush his teeth. He went to brush his teeth 3 minutes later. Next question. You record how many times the student gets up from their seat. What type of data is this? The answer here is A, frequency. So it's not B, rate, because there is not a time given for this to be rate. So when you want to think of rate, you always want to make sure that there is a time that is given, 30 minutes, 20 minutes. There should be some type of time considered in the scenario. And it's not C, duration, because the key word here is how many times. It's not how long, how many times. And it's not D, latency, because there's no direction given to do anything. There was no SD presented in this scenario. Another question. Which item would be best to track frequency? The answer here is B, a clicker. You don't want to use a stopwatch because that tracks time. You don't want to use your hand to count because that's not the best way to track behavior. And what happens if there's more than 10 behaviors? You only have 10 fingers. And D, you don't want to collect data in your head. Not the best idea. You may forget when the behavior happened. You might forget the frequency. It's just not the ideal way to collect data. A clicker is your best answer for this scenario. Next question. You are measuring IRT, which is inter-response time for tapping. A student taps the table at 9 o'clock, 9:01, 9:03. What is the longest IRT? The answer here is B, 9:01 and 9:03, which is 3 minutes. It's not A because the time difference between 9 and 9:01 is 1 minute. So that is less time than 3 minutes. And it's not C because the difference is 1 minute and 3 minutes. And it's not D because there is enough information given to measure the IRT. All right, guys, we are at the end. Things to remember. A1, how to prepare for your data collection. A2, what is continuous measurements and what are they? Frequency, rate, duration, latency, IRT, which is inter-response time. Good luck studying. Like and subscribe. I hope to see you for the rest of Task List A of measurements.